Welcome to the Matthew Mania podcast. I'm Matthew Maschler, real estate broker with Signature Real Estate Finder here in the great state of Florida. And Florida is so great. I'm sure you heard the news. Mark Wahlberg, yes, Marky Mark, has bought a $47 million mansion right next door to us in Delray Beach, Florida. It's actually outside the Delray city lines. It's in unincorporated Palm Beach County. But Mark Wahlberg, a lot of people saying he's moving to Florida, moving to Boca, moving to Delray. Well, he's actually had a house here in Boca for a very long time. If anybody remembers, a couple of years back, there was a big fundraiser after a hurricane and he was out there helping. I think the people with Rocco's Tacos raise money for hurricane victims. So, like a lot of celebrities and famous people that live in South Florida, Mark has lived among us for a while, but made a splash last week, October of 2025, when he bought a $47.5 million mansion in Delray Beach, Florida. And a lot of people blew up my phone when that happened, and as they tend to do when anybody buys in Florida. But some people knew, and especially a longtime listener of this show, knew that I actually specialize in that community where he bought the $47.5 million home, Stone Creek Ranch. Go to stonecreekranch.com for my website. No one has sold more properties in Stone Creek Ranch than yours truly. But no, I did not sell Marky Mark that house. He did not reach out to me for contact. Although when I heard the news that he did close on that house, I immediately called the listing agent on the house, someone I've worked with before, to let her know about a property that I had for sale. It's literally the first thing I thought of, a property I have for sale, also in Delray Beach, Florida, in Antiquers Aerodrome. Yes, that property you've probably heard about, the one where you can build a hangar, 6,000 square feet, in your backyard. You can build a house and an airplane hangar up to 6,000 square feet. For the hangar, not just the house, the hangar alone can be 6,000 square feet, and it's on a private airstrip. Just the people in that community can use that grass airstrip. And I was quoted in the Palm Beach Post when Iron Mike Tyson bought in Antiquers Aerodrome. He had the choice between the lot that I eventually had sold my customer and the lot across the street. He bought the lot across the street for a reason that I thought was a negative, but I actually found out later when I went to sell the same property that my customers bought because they changed their mind. When I went to sell it, I actually realized and found out that questioned me, like, why did I buy that house because of this particular thing that I thought was a negative. And when I was selling the house, I realized, oh, yeah, he thought it was a good thing. And we'll talk about that later on a different episode, or feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll explain later, or just somebody remind me, and I'll explain the negative turned to a positive. Actually, yeah, the negative that turned to a positive in Antiquers Aerodrome. I need to make a special podcast about that because I am on a tangent and a tangent. I'm on a tangent about Mark Wahlberg and Stone Creek Ranch. I called up the listing agent that I presumably had the deal, and then she did have both sides. Mark's people had contacted her directly, and so what I said is, "Hey, listen, I'm sure you heard that Iron Mike Tyson bought this house in Antiquers Aerodrome. It's 2.5 miles away, and I'm sure Mark has a plane, and maybe he want to buy this property, build a residence for, not for himself to live in, but maybe for his pilots, some of his crew, some of his staff, some of his entourage, if you will. He has got to need a place to put the entourage, and they can build a house there. And the hangar can be, a game room doesn't have to be a hangar. No sooner did I make that phone call when I got an offer on the house from somebody else. Absolutely incredible. So then I called the agent back another day later and I said, hey, I want to follow up. Don't know if you have any interest. I actually did get an offer on it. Crazy. 120 days with no offer, and then all of a sudden an offer. Maybe it is Mark's people kind of going through the back door. I don't know. But this was actually a fun showing. Thanks you to a friend of mine that actually lives in the community. I was able to show not just the vacant lot, but across the street, I was able to show my friend's residence and show their family hangar, what they built, club room, game room, all kinds of fun toys and activities that they built in the hangar space. So the buyer can get an idea of what it would look like. And yes, that strategy worked, and got an offer, and we were under contract in our Antigers Aerodrome property. Yay! So back to Marky Mark. I wanted to share with you the story of how I am connected and how I became the top salesman in Stone Creek Ranch. I will give you a little asterisk. I haven't sold anything in Stone Creek Ranch in a while. I don't have any listings and don't have any buyer leads. It's a little unfortunate when you get to be my age and at this stage in your career when a lot of your contacts are I mean, it's not sexist. It's just true, right? A lot of the contacts are the male of the couple, right? I know the guy that lives in the house or the guy that built the house because he's the one that dealt with the HOA and dealt with the lawyers and dealt with the purchase and dealt with the with all the fun stuff. I didn't really deal with the wife so much when these people bought their properties, or I was president of the Stone Creek Ranch HOA for several years when people had issues and lawyers and designs and stuff. I generally made a good relationship with the guy, with the him. Like I had lots of people that I knew I'd get the listing from when they were ready to sell. But when the him passes away and the her makes a decision on realtor and she doesn't know me, and like I can't tell you how many times I was like, oh, I would have had that listing if the guy didn't die. Even one in Woodfield, Mr. Goodman, and we miss Barry Goodman. But I saw his house sell recently, and I didn't know his wife. Because he was a Chabad guy, and over at Chabad, the men and women don't sit next to each other. So I only knew Barry. I didn't know the wife. So obviously, when he passed away, I had no shot at the listing. Them's the breaks in the real estate business. Anyway, back to Stone Creek Ranch. We're going to take a little. We're actually going to do something a little special today because our social media team booked me to do videos today, not just podcasts. So we're going to try something new today. I have the video all set up. I have the cameras all set up. So you're actually going to go behind the scenes to a videotaping. We do hours of videotaping, which become 3 and 4 minute clips on Instagram and TikTok. And the subject is going to be Stone Creek Ranch and Marky Mark. So my podcast audience will actually get to hear me record my videos and have a different perspective on the videos that you see on the Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok and Threads, whatever Threads are, and Circles, and Truth Social, and all the other social media. So you'll get behind the scenes on how that's made while I talk to the video camera production people about Stone Creek Ranch. So let's see how we're gonna do. All right, how did I look? You said you're rolling, so all right.
Action.
All right, so here we are. It's the end of 2025, and I have lived in Florida for 20 years. I moved to Florida 20 years ago, December of 2005. My kids were 1.5 years old, and had to convince Wendy to move to Florida, and we've not looked back since. And I'm actually thinking of doing something to mark my 20th anniversary of living in Florida. So I moved to Florida in 2005, December of 2005. And we were in the middle of what everyone would now recognize as a massive housing bubble in the United States of America. All right. Everything was on fire. Prices were only going up. And, a lot of people ask me, like, as a real estate agent, like, what do I think, like, the future of the market? If I knew the future of the market, right, I'd be investing in stuff. I wouldn't be selling real estate. I wouldn't be doing what I do. I'd do things differently. I am a mark-to-market guy. I think that everything known about markets is known now, and everything is priced now. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, and I always believe that. So in 2005, we didn't know we were in a bubble. I actually believed that September 11th was going to burst the bubble, right? I thought prices were so high in the summer of 2001 that 9/11 was going to burst the housing bubble. Turns out it was the bottom, right? The U.S. housing bubble from 2000 to 2008 was an incredible run. So I actually thought it was the top when it was the bottom. So I could not predict markets. So December of 2005, we were in a big housing bubble. But things were great. I moved to Woodfield Country Club. I rented a house for a year to see if I would like it, and we loved it. We've been here ever since, 20 years. Like I said, kids grew up here. They were babies, and now they're in college. So I decided to stop being a lawyer. I did not like the practice of law, and I became a real estate agent in 2005. Really, in 2006, when I moved to Florida, and I used that skill to actually buy the house I currently live in and buy and sell real estate for my friends and family. And I didn't know that I was going to do it as a career. I just knew that I was always doing everything for sale by owner. So, you know what they say: if you can't fight them, join them. So I decided. So I got my real estate licenses when I moved to Florida. Bought my house, bought some houses for friends and family, but I wasn't really practicing as a real estate agent. But I wasn't really practicing law either. So I needed something to do, right? Because the kids are going to see like, well, what does your dad do? So I actively would network and tell people I was a real estate agent and not some of the other investments and entrepreneurial things that I do. And it served me well. And I started buying and selling for my father's friends, and then started buying and selling for people I met from networking. And I still remember to this day, the first time I sold a house for a stranger, right? I was not a friend or family. It was just from my networking. Someone hired me. They wanted to buy a house. They bought a house for $1 million. I made a 3% commission. I made 30 grand. It was fantastic and easy. And I wanted to do it again because, man, 30,000 is a lot of money. Okay, so fast forward to the housing crash. 2008, 2009 was a housing crash. So in that housing crash, we had decided, we being my family, had decided to buy bad mortgages, non-performing mortgages. Everybody else was going to the foreclosure sales, but we were actually buying the notes from the banks to take it off their hands so they didn't have to go to the sale. We would take it to the foreclosure sales for them. But over the course of time, we would actually contact our borrowers, and a lot of times we were able to refinance them and keep them in their homes. Or if we couldn't, we could do cash for keys. So instead of foreclosing on them, we could give them money to moving expenses and get some rent and make it a very easy process for them. And then they would deed the house over to us. So I started selling real estate from my portfolio. We were doing a lot of it in New Jersey, and I told my partners, like, let's do some in Florida. So I started not buying, but I started acquiring these properties from either foreclosure or cash for keys. And then I would rehab them, paint them, stage them, make them nice, market them. I would be the listing agent. Whereas in New Jersey, for the core of our investments, they were we had to hire a realtor to be the agent, but I'm going to make the 3% on the listing side by listing my own properties. I can't even believe I'm saying this in public and on my podcast, but yeah. So this is what I did. This is actually how I started in my real estate career, in a bad market, in a terrible market. After the 08-09 crash, I was making a reputation because I was selling properties when nobody could sell anything. Why was I selling them? Well, I was pricing them right. Housing prices fell in half in Florida. So I was pricing them right. I wasn't holding on to some imaginary or last year's or 5 years ago's price. And housing is an essential service. People do need to move, buy bigger houses, buy smaller houses. So I was pricing them right, so they were selling. So I was getting a reputation as a real estate agent who could sell because I was closing one house a month. I was acquiring a house, fixing it up, and closing every month. But also helping my father's friends in the country clubs and the mansions. So I was selling country clubs and mansions, making money by cash for keys and rehabbing less desirable 3-2s all through Palm Beach and Broward County, Equus community, Wellington, Loxahatchee, Broward County, Coconut Creek. I was all over Palm Beach and Broward County rehabbing properties. I remember this beautiful house on the Intercoastal in Pompano Beach that I was rehabbing these properties and selling them. And that's how I gained my reputation as a great real estate agent, because I was selling in a bad market, and I was doing transactions when everything else was sitting. Okay, so how does that bring us to Stone Creek Ranch? The developer of Stone Creek Ranch, Ken Endelson, Kenco Homes, is a great developer here in town, and he developed the Oaks. And when I moved to Florida, a lot of people were moving out of Woodfield and St. Andrews country clubs into the Oaks to have that country club lifestyle without the golf and the expense. And the Oaks is an incredible community. But the developer found himself with certain buyers that wanted bigger houses and wanted more land. So the next development he had scheduled for when he finished the Oaks was the land where Stone Creek Ranch is now. And what he ended up doing was, instead of making an Oaks type development there, he ended up making large home sites, big sprawling estates, because he knew he had buyers. So in the Oaks, where you want singles, doubles, triples, the people that were going for the triples and the home runs, he saw that there was room, and he saw there was a next level, and that could only be in that 2000 up bubble market, where you would see that next level, these grand slam real estate deals. So he developed Stone Creek Ranch into 37 parcels, 2.5 acres per parcel. It should have had 300 homes or 400 homes, like a Bridges or a Lotus, but he developed this into 37 home sites, each a minimum of 2.5 acres. And all was going well, and the houses that they built were incredible. And Wayne Huizenga Jr. bought a double lot and built the largest single-family residence on one level, one story, in the state of Florida. And Samari Rolle from the Baltimore Ravens bought an incredible house, but instead of a tennis court, he put it in a basketball court with a FSU colors on it. And it was really, really magnificent. I'm blanking on the gentleman's name. Older gentleman who owned Roma Foods. If you're ever driving, my friends in New Jersey driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, Lou Piancone, Roma Foods, very, very nice man. He built himself a beautiful mansion. So just a lot of very, very wealthy people living in Stone Creek Ranch in their 2.5 acres homes. It was not fully developed. And then the market crashed, right? Those bubbles, those big runs, they can't last forever. So, and if anybody's seen like The Big Short, right, this is exactly what this is about, the book or the movie. So the market crashed. Homes weren't selling. None of those big homes were selling. Nothing in the Oaks was even selling. How would a big home sell? And my father did a deal with Ken Endelson to kind of like refinance his position. And we took the 19 undeveloped lots that he had at Stone Creek Ranch as collateral. And basically, I said to myself, I'm going to go get my broker's license. We could have a whole nother conversation. Hey guys, write down one day we should talk about the difference between a real estate agent and a real estate broker. Okay.
Got that?
Yeah. Okay. So I got my broker's license. Went back to the school, and then shout out, by the way, to Bambi Ross. I haven't seen her in a while. She said we were in the broker's class together. And my father says, "Why are you getting your real estate broker's license?" I'm like, "Well, we're going to end up with all of these lots in Stone Creek Ranch that we're going to have to sell. So I figured I'd get my license so I can run the sales center over there." My dad goes, "Nah, it's just a financing deal." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, it's just a financing deal, but we know how financing deals end." We were in a foreclosure crisis in this country. All you heard on the news was foreclosures. So the odds, and I'm looking at, in my mind, the odds. What if it, and I'm not here to bash Ken, right? Like, Ken's a businessman, and this was an arm's length transaction, right? But he was in the bird's eye seat. If he got a buyer for one of these lots, he would sell the buyer the lot and pay us off on our loan. But at the end of the loan term, is he going to buy the lots back from us, or is he going to pay off the loan, or is he going to walk away? I figured he'd walk away, and I would have to sell these 19 lots, and that's exactly what happened. So I took over the sales center at Stone Creek Ranch. I met Maureen Murtaugh, who was the top salesman for Kenco and handling Stone Creek Ranch, and we partnered up and we worked together to sell the 19 lots that me and my family owned at Stone Creek Ranch. And I became the president of the Homeowners Association because there were people that were living in the community. And oh my goodness, I remember the first HOA meeting that I went to, and they were mad at me. They were all like, they were yelling at me, screaming at me. I'm like, "What are you mad at me for? What did I do?" Like, I didn't do anything. I bought these lots, right? I purchased these lots. And my goal is to make Stone Creek Ranch amazing, right? Because you only own one house. I got 19 of them, right? So I'm here to finish the community, right? That's what we have to do. We have to find buyers. And we have to finish out this community. So we could have made the decision to build houses and find buyers, but that's not what I do. I'm not a builder, and the market was shit. Can I say shit on my social media? Yeah. So the market was shit. So we took over the marketing. I became president of the homeowners association. I'd have the monthly HOA meetings, and we worked with buyers. There were some other lots that other developers had owned. So we worked with buyers, whether they were my buyers or not, and got their plans approved, and we started building houses. I mentioned something earlier. I was mentioning some of the famous people that live there. Did I say Wayne Huizenga Jr.? Yeah, I did. Yes. The double lot. Okay. So
largest single story.
Yeah, largest single story from Florida. So anyway, so one of the houses was actually when I first came in 2009. When I came in and took over the HOA, I saw one of the houses. They weren't paying their HOA quarterly assessments, so they were actually in foreclosure with the bank. It was a $20+ million foreclosure. It was crazy. So I go over to the house. It's all haunted looking. It looked like a European castle. In Delray, it looked like a European castle. But because it was abandoned and there were cobwebs and everything was overgrown, it really felt like you were an adventure in northern England or something on this estate. I used to go over and give people tours of it. But so I went to a foreclosure sale. And I didn't go to the foreclosure sale to bid on it. Because in my experience, what happens is the banks will bid their mortgage and then end up owning the property, right? So if they have a $20+ million mortgage, who's going to outbid them at the sale, right? They're probably just going to bid what they're owed. That's what I thought. But the person that bought it, they bought it for like $2.5 million, right? The bank just let the bidding happen. They didn't want to be involved in this property. They didn't want to come over and take this property back. Now that they have to maintain it, have the liability if anybody tripped and fall. It was such a mess. So the people that bought it for $2.5 million sold it 5 days later for $3.5 million. I was so mad because I should have been there. I should have went to the auction. So when the next property went to auction, I made sure not to make that mistake again. And and I'm very, very old. So when I used to go to foreclosure auctions, it was in person. You would go and you bid, but now it's all done on the computer. So I was on the computer and I was bidding on this house for sale, and it's like $100 increments. And you bid and it finally gets to your highest number, but you still bid a little bit more. And I was going back and forth with this other bidder for $100 increments. It felt like 20 minutes. And I finally go, all right, my last bid. All right, one more. Okay. If he outbids me, I'm not. And then he didn't outbid me. And then I was the high bidder. And then I bought the property. And then we fixed up the property. But I got a call a couple of days later. Hi, I'd like to speak to you about the property. Yes. He goes, I was the person you bid against. So now I'm scared because I don't know if you know, but on some of these foreclosure sales, they're people that are like unsavory people that do this kind of work. So this person wanted to meet me. So I was a little nervous. So I brought, you guys know my friend Chris, right? Big Chris. I brought Big Chris, and I had like brass knuckles in my pocket. Chris had a taser in the car, and so we go meet this guy for lunch, and he comes in, and he's a nice, Jewish guy, and he comes in with his partner. He looked like a little Jewish accountant or something, and I'm like, all right, so I'm not going to have the fight that I'm geared up for. And we got to talking, and I gotta look and see what when this was. This was probably like 2014, 15. And anyway, we got to talking, and we became really, really good friends and colleagues in the real estate business. He's I put in one of the three. There's about three people that I can learn from, that I can have real estate conversations with, that I go to ask a question, and he's one of those. And whenever we hang out, I love when people ask us how we met, because it's the greatest story ever. Right? I made a friend and $1 million. So it's the greatest story ever. I love when people ask me how we met. And yeah, so we sold the property. We basically made $1 million selling that property. Not me, my partners and office and everything like that. But it was a really good deal. It was probably one of the best deals. Definitely in my top 10 deals. I go to the Boca Raton Investment Club. Shout out to the Boca Raton Investment Club, David Zweck, and I won deal of the day that month's meeting for that buy, flip, buy, rehab, sell deal. So won my deal of the day and $1 million and a friend. So what could be wrong with that? And then over the years, I became not friends with Wayne Jr., but like I could talk to him, and it's nice. I mean, it's a really amazing guy. I read his father's autobiography when I was in college, and it really amazing to meet all the different people and friends I've met in Stone Creek Ranch, and then going through and selling all the different lots. And that's what we have to go back to. But I will tell you, whenever I show a property, I picture myself living in the property, not for me, but like what it would be like, right? And it doesn't have to be a mansion; it could be a 2-bedroom, but what it would be like, where you would have your breakfast, where you'd have your dinner, if friends came over, where they would go to the bathroom, right? What's it like to live in that property? And certainly I'd considered, right, when we took over the property, do I want to live there, right? Well, I love my wife. I got 2 kids. I don't need something that big. And let me tell you, I do have a nice house, right? But so I didn't need something that big. And when we foreclosed on that one mansion, like, oh, do I want to live there? But it was too big. And but anyway, so when we were coming out of the bad market and builders were coming in and building spec homes, I went to this one home that was magnificent with a golf simulator and a racquetball, might have been squash, I didn't know squash at the time, the racquetball court and arcades and bowling alleys and movie theaters. And I'm like, oh, what would it be like to live here? And if my kids were 11 years old, I'm like, well, they're going to college in a few years, and it's just going to be me and my wife. I'm going to be lonely in this house. I felt a sense of loneliness. So, as a salesman for Stone Creek Ranch, I don't like to say the things I don't like about Stone Creek Ranch, but the sense of loneliness that I feel when I'm in these big mansions is one of the reasons I could never live over there. There's great things to like about it as a salesman, right? Sidewalks, both sides of the street. I think that's very important. You walk your dog, and there's communities in Boca Raton that don't have sidewalks. So how do you go for a morning walk? Certainly during COVID, we all had to go for those walks. Public water and public sewer, so you don't have a septic system. You don't use well water. That's very important. Natural gas. Some of the bigger communities in Boca Raton, La Lac or whatnot, don't have natural gas, so that's really nice. So all of those features make Stone Creek Ranch an amazing place to live, besides being in 2.5 acres, guard gated. And that's what brings us to Marky Mark. Everybody's surprised. Why would he live west? If I had this kind of money, he'd live by the water. Well, if you live by the water, you can't have 2.5 acres gated. I mean, you can, but it would be $100 million. And let me tell you, the property he bought, it's not just a house. It's a resort. It's a private resort. It is absolutely amazing. Really, really special. And I've been through that house when it was originally built by the builder. This builder, most houses in Stone Creek Ranch are not like this. If we go through this one, and I'm going to give you some real numbers because it's public information. When we bought the 19 lots, one of the first things I did to market them was to break them down into A lots, B lots, and C lots. Which ones was the best? Which ones were the middle? Which ones were the worst? Not the worst being bad. I just wanted to know when I'm pricing and when I'm selling, right, which was one of the better lots. This particular lot, we put in the A level, and between you and me, that was probably a mistake. And I can explain why. It's not a bad lot, but because I know these 19 lots as if they are my children, I know what's good about them and what's bad about them. And if someone came to me to choose one of the 19 lots, I could say all of them. As we sold them off, and there were less lots left, you could be less picky. They're all amazing in their own way. So, so this lot, and when we did the deal with Kenny, this was the island. There were 3 lots in the center of Stone Creek Ranch, all surrounded by water, the island. So those were the premier lots. And one of the things that the seller told us was, don't give those away, right? Make sure you get good money for those. So I bought the lots. Let's say we bought them for 500K each, and I was selling them for 700, 750, 800. Um, that the lot that Marky Mark bought, we sold not to him, but to the original person that we sold it to for 900,000. And then over the course of that person, and this happened in a lot of lots, over the course of their ownership, they've changed their mind. So one of the reasons I say that no one sold more lots in Stone Creek Ranch than I did was I sold the 19 lots for that me and my family owned, but then and I sold some other lots for some of the other owners, and I listed some houses that were there, but some of the lots that I sold, I actually listed them again when the buyer decided they didn't want to own it anymore. So that particular lot 20, and I know the lots all by number. Everybody else knows them by address. So Marky Mark's lot. Can I call you Marky Mark? Yeah, we're friends. We're neighbors. I can call you Marky Mark. You can call me Matty Matt if you want. So, that was lot 20, and the reason why lot 20 is a little bit of a negative is I told you there were 3 lots on the island surrounded by water. Well, 19 and 21 were on the end, so they're surrounded by water like this. But 20 is not surrounded by water. 20 is surrounded by lots 19 and 21. So it only has water in the back. And we priced all 3 of them the same, as if they were equal. And the only way they'd be equal is if someone bought a double, or even if someone bought all 3. And that's what actually happened with 20. Someone bought a double, but then they built on one, but they didn't build on the other. And then we sold that one off. So I was a listing agent. I don't know if I was the buyer in that transaction. And then the person that bought it, I think, passed away. I'd have to check. And then eventually, AK Builders, Aldo, bought about 5 or 6 lots, and he made these mega mansions that put the rest of Stone Creek Ranch to shame. One was called Palazzo del Lago, one was called Villa Spectre, and if you Google these things, Palazzo del Lago, that's the one that Mark Wahlberg bought. It's like a Venetian palace. Casino Spectre is like a James Bond themed thing, and I mean these are not houses; these are resorts. They're absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like them. When the last group of builders built, and they were amazing mansions that really blew me away, they were still not at this level. So when people say 47.5 million, most houses in Stone Creek Ranch are not as good as that. But the Google Palazzo del Lago, or Mark Wahlberg Del Rey house, and you'll see this is a very, very special house. So why would Mark Wahlberg want to live there? If I had that much money to live on the water, if he lived there, he could have everything. He could have his restaurants. He could not restaurants, but he could do all of his entertaining, bar, food, everything at the house. You don't have to go to the Caribbean to have the most amazing pool. It's nicer than any hotel in the Caribbean, the pool and the landscaping and everything. So having everything there is just an absolute wonderful thing. And he'd be able to really live very well in privacy. One of the things that I also liked about Stone Creek Ranch is right off the turnpike. You have the Atlantic Avenue exit for the turnpike. It doesn't take you long to get there. So I was talking to someone who had a boat, like to go to the Keys. Well, if he lived in East Boca, it would take him forever to get out of East Boca, maybe go over the drawbridge. By the time he got to 95, dealing with traffic. Whereas at Stone Creek Ranch, pop on the turnpike in 40 minutes, that it might just take that first person just to get started on 95. This person would already be in Broward County, not halfway to the Keys, but well on the way to Miami or the Keys. So that's another great thing about this. Theoretically, I don't know. I'm not a celebrity. I don't know how celebrities live, but if he needs to go to Miami, I don't know if he's going to fly out of Antiquers or Boca Raton Airport. When I controlled Stone Creek Ranch, you could not land a helicopter. Do people land helicopters? I don't know. I've heard there are 2 people with helicopters. I don't know the current HOA rules. I could probably find out. Actually, I should make a note about that. Call the HOA.
Yeah.
And but anyway, easy access to the world, to Miami Airport. Jump on the turnpike. Go, get down to Miami, and it's pretty easy. And then get back to the most amazing guard gated. It is so beautiful when you pull up to Stone Creek Ranch, the waterfalls, the guard gate as they let you in. These beautiful bridges and landscaping. and you're really, really transformed. Your blood pressure goes down as you enter the community, and it's just an absolute wonderful place for somebody like that, for someone looking for the privacy and the absolute top-notch build-out community. Nowhere better in the world, and there's a lot of good reasons why he would have moved there, and I'm very, very happy for him, and I'm hoping to meet him one day.
Sounds great, man. We're gonna cut.
All right. So thank you for joining us on the Matthew Mania podcast. That's my story. And think about this story, right? It's really how I became a real estate agent, all about Stone Creek Ranch and Mark Wahlberg. Matthew Maschler, real estate broker, signature real estate finder. And we'll see you soon. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comments or reach out to sales@realestatefinder.com.
The future looks bright and the storms pass by. The sky's dark blue and it's almost that time. Light shows, cameras flash when I pass. Living in the moment, forget about the past. They save the best for last. Matthew Mania, we about to make a splash. Life is a marathon full of sharp turns. Gotta keep pace while the hands on the clock turns. High stakes, 5-star real estate. I run a show, you can tell the boss in the place. Electricity, energy, it vibrates. I'm always on time even if I'm late. I make dreams come true, living my life, hope the same for you. Success in my sights, got a real clear view. If you don't know the time, I'll give you a clue. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. Yeah. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time is his. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time is his. Yeah, got him shook, scared, can't look. We're not a